so let's rock and roll. Roll call, please.
All right, Delvo.
Yes.
Schuler.
Recording in progress.
All right. Delvo is here. Schuler is excused. Scannell.
Present.
Dean.
Here.
Hinkvis. Parma.
Here.
And Ganter is excused, I believe. So we have quorum.
We have a quorum, barely, but we have a quorum. And maybe Kathy will still be joining us. Okay, approval of the agenda. Okay, first of all, number 7.
Staff's requesting number 7 be removed from the agenda. There's no need for it at this point.
Vision
so.
to amend the agenda to eliminate number 7 and keep the rest.
Motion and second, right now.
7, get rid of 7.
Debbie wants to know why we're moving number 7.
We're eliminating.
Well, that's essentially in discussions with the developers and involved in the projects. There are two different, there's the primary owner and a second developer involved in that. Both proceeding with planned unit development for their sites. The development agreement was essentially ascended to kind of document and codify some of the background information and how we got there. After discussing and going through with legal counsel and the amount of removing language, that there just really wasn't anything outside of the planned unit development left in the document anymore. So there was no need to go into that with an external document other than the 2 planned unit developments that are still proceeding to council next week.
So Randy made the motion, all in this panel. Debbie, you second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The agenda has been...
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Very good, thank you. We have minutes from February 2nd and February 14th. I hope everybody had a chance to look at them. I know I did. I had no problem with them. Anybody else?
Motion to approve it, all the minutes and the hours and the days.
Second.
A second with them?
Yeah.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the minutes of February 2nd, February 14th. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That time of year again, I guess, election.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, election of officers.
I think you need campaign led.
So I think our general procedure here is to ask if just open if there's any members who wish to nominate someone, and then with the first and second, if there's multiple candidates, we'll do a vote. If there are just one candidate, we will just approve that one.
Okay.
Depending on whatever the body's desires are here.
Okay. Nominations are open.
Well, I move to approve the committee members as they were listed in total.
Was that? Oh, is that our?
This is the
To nominate.
chair,
You
vice
gotta
chair.
nominate.
This is chair.
Oh.
Yep.
Sorry, never mind.
So you gotta do one at a time.
I'm moving too fast.
We appreciate it, though, that we actually.
I make a motion that Gary W. be our chair.
I
And
think we'll need separate motions on those.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
is there any other candidates who wish to be chair?
Any other nominations?
Going once, going twice, going 3 times?
Okay.
I think then that's a motion and second. Could we have a vote on that, please?
All those in favor of the nomination of Gary being the chair, signify by saying aye.
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 Good. Even though Matt's not here,
Better yet, I nominate Matt for vice chair.
there you go.
I second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All those in favor of Matt being the vice chair, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Matt, I hope you're happy because you are.
That's right. Serves him right for going on vacation. That's right.
And this is kind of new, but we've been doing this lately. The secretary, obviously, usually our executive director is our secretary. So I'll make the nomination that Neil continue to be our executive director and our secretary. Is there a second?
Second?
Any other nominations? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Aye.
Thanks, Ellen. Thanks for your vote of confidence. We appreciate that. We have the list of the chair of the committees, and unless there are some changes, we have a lot of agenda. So I guess I recommend that anybody wants some changes that we talk about next meeting, whatever, unless you want to discuss it now. But I mean, I think our committees are fine. Unless somebody wants to switch between committees or whatever, we're gonna let them stand as they are.
Did I just get a list of that? I didn't know we had something.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah, but
I missed it. too fast.
Some of those don't meet real often. Probably revolving loan fund.
So did you make a motion for that? Or I need to make a motion for that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the subcommittees, funding administration subcommittee, real estate subcommittee, and community development subcommittee loan fund and their members as is listed.
Very good.
Second.
Second. Motion and second to leave subcommittees as is. As always, somebody wants to make a change after this, we can certainly do that. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Great. All the subcommittees will stand as presented. Number 3, consideration with possible action on the award of a fair housing services 3-year contract to Metropolitan Milwaukee Fair Housing Council with Community Development Block Grant funding. Krista?
Yep, that's me. So our fair housing contract has expired with Metropolitan Milwaukee Fair Housing Council. And then part of our federal regulations, we have to comply with fair housing. So we put we made an RFP, we put together an RFP and we put it out. We received one applicant back, which was Metropolitan Milwaukee Fair Housing Council. They have been doing our fair housing for the past 20 years, if not more. I believe they do a great job. So we would like to award them the contract for the next 3 years.
Excellent. And no complaints from the past. Debbie, please.
Do you know how many complaints have come from the city of Green Bay?
Yeah, they give us a quarterly breakdown and then a yearly breakdown. Complaints usually around, or fair housing issues that they research and dive into is usually around 10 to 15 a year. But they do refer people, they get other complaints and they do a variety of different services for us. They do training and they put,
I saw the list of the
Yeah.
contract, yeah.
We also had some recommendations from the ERC with regards to doing more locally based outreach with regards to fair housing, and I've talked with Erica from this firm, totally on board with us, maybe focusing our efforts to specific nonprofits in the area that could help us get the word out.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of wondering if like during the pandemic, there was a lot of high complaints and they've gone down.
No, it seems to be steady
Okay,
from their reports.
all right, thank you.
Sounds fair to me, I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Scannell. Second by Debbie. Any questions or comments in regard to the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 4. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for joining us. No, you're great. Right at that. Okay, number 4. Consideration of possible action to approve and recommend to the Common Council with the City of Green Bay's 2023 Annual Action Plan for Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership Program, Home Entitlement Programs. And is
That's
Krista
me
again?
again.
Please.
Yep. So we received notice or notification from HUD that they did their allocation. They released their allocation amounts for the entitlement communities. Since we received that dollar amount, we moved ahead with our procedure for putting together our annual action plan. We had a public hearing. We talked internally with staff and the mayor. Based on what we are receiving in funds for community development block grant and for homes, we drafted this budget with activities. From last year, we're receiving a little bit more in CDBG funds and a little less in home funding. The categories and activities that we put together coincide with our 5-year consolidated plan for community development, block grant, and home. And they're really the only difference from this year to last year is we're putting a little bit more into our public service activity categories, and we're gonna possibly open that up to the community so that they can fill out applications, and we'll award funding based on the activities that are presented to us. It's kind of like an open open call for public service activities. Does anybody have questions?
I have a
Sure.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a total of $250,000 then for single-family rehab
Yes.
between home and CDBG.
Mhm.
What's the maximum amount of loan that they can get? Is it
It's
50,000?
based on, well, I think it's 35,000 for home and, or for help, yes, 35,000 is the
Otherwise,
max.
you pass the levy then? Clause that makes it so you can't go higher?
Well, I think you can go higher than that. I mean, with home funding with the HILP program, based on the regulations, you have to bring the whole house up to code. So if they have
Right.
enough equity in the house, those loans can go up over 35,000, but typically that's kind of
I just remember there was a threshold that if they went over it, then the whole house had to be renovated.
Yes, but that's a calculation that the contractor does with what type of work is being
Oh,
done. If
okay.
you're touching
Okay.
things that need the lead abatement, you add those dollar amounts up, and if they go over that 35,000, then you have to do that. So
Okay.
it's a calculation.
We test for lead too. as
Yeah,
part
we
of our
test
loan
for lead.
program, so-
Right, I know.
Yeah.
It's very expensive, the
Yeah.
whole thing. So I'm just, wondering, how
Yeah,
many homes?
yeah, and the reason why it's a little bit less this year is because we do have some funding that is still out there and available.
Yeah.
So,
It's hard to get contractors on.
yes, it's hard to get contractors right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there is kind of a bottleneck, people waiting on the waiting list for that due to those issues which are out of our control. So,
Last question, is there still a prioritization on certain types of homes to get fixed?
like an emergency, yes, there still is. Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Alderman Scannell,
Nope,
this is
I'm
gonna
good.
go to city council, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, good. Had a few questions earlier, but staff answered that, so I'm good.
Good.
All right.
Melanie, any questions, comments?
No, I'm good.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alderman Scannell,
Second.
second by Debbie. Questions or comments in regard to the recommendation and the motion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed, motion carried, thank you.
can I just make a comment? I'm having a little hard time hearing Debbie when Debbie is
Okay,
speaking.
sorry.
Okay.
No, that's okay.
You're coming in loud.
It's a common
Melanie.
complaint.
We'll get the microphone a little closer to her, how's that?
All right.
Just teasing you. Okay, number 5. Consideration of possible action to determine to replace a grant agreement with BFAM LLC for renovation of 317 Delsman Street.
I can take that one.
Yeah,
You might recall back in June of last year, the RDA approved a grant agreement with BFAM. The grant agreement was for TDA funds, our tax increments, development, affordable housing dollars. That was to help with the renovation of the building and creating 6 new affordable housing units on the 2nd story of that building. That's the former Bangkok Gardens building, for all of those if you're not aware. That grant agreement was contingent on the city being awarded a CDI grant, Community Development Investment Grant through WEDC, which we did receive. We received $250,000, the city did, which we're passing those dollars through to BFAM to improve their project. So this is really just we were going to amend the TDA agreement that we had previously approved, just because of the amount of changes required with the CDI grant being included into the scope. The law department recommended we just terminate the old agreement and create this new one. So that's essentially what we're doing here today.
Good. Questions, comments?
Glad to hear you got the WBC grant. When I first saw it, I'm like, Wait a minute, you can't use that ground for residential. Oh, it's a mixed-use building.
Mixed use.
Yep.
There are
Did you get
commercial
mixed
units.
I did, I'm like, you can't just use it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alderman Scannell, and second by Melanie. Questions or comments in regard to the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Number 6, consideration of possible action on the award of selected playground equipment for Farland Park.
Yeah, this is part of our 2022 CDBG funds. Parks Department would like to purchase park equipment for Farland Park. I attached a copy of the proposed equipment to your agenda items, so this would just be approving those block grant dollars to purchase that equipment and to award that RFP.
I see Mr. Parks is here. I think it's pretty cut and dry, but any questions or comments? So like
A motion to approve.
motion-
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carried. Thank you. All right, it's always very good use of our funds. Absolutely. All right, and number 7 were removed. Number 8, which is something we talked about a couple different times. And now it sounds like if we don't make some type of move, it's gonna cost us some money.
That's the short end of it, Mr. Chairman. I can give a quick update
Yeah,
on that.
please.
So obviously, these are the 2 items bringing forward here again today are the RDA's owned parcel on the northwest corner of the former Bay Lake City Center building, and then an easement on the south side of the property and that's immediately adjacent to the RDA-owned property,
Yes.
parking lot on that. In several conversations, obviously, this group has had been concerns over the overall general project, I think, in general. Certainly in some with regards to the particular items being in question, but usually in the context of concerns over the overall project. The developer of that project is essentially, it was, I think, to remind you, previous action on this was to, I believe was to deny the easement, and then there was no action on the northwest corner of the parcel at this point. So essentially, the developer proceeded then, in reaction to that action, the direction from this body to proceed with revising plans for renovating that building that does not require those 2 items. So essentially, that would be, I guess in summary, would be kind of the primary change that would be noticeable would be probably without the easement that would be required to essentially to fill in the enclosures, ingress and egress on the Adams Street parking lot side of the building. So windows and doors would likely need to be bricked in or otherwise filled in.
Right.
Essentially, so I guess I wanted to recap the options. So we already retaining the ownership of the parcel. We do have, now that we are aware of the code violation that is actually going on there because of plans that have been submitted to the city, essentially we have a responsibility to get that addressed. It's been around for a long time, but it was never in a situation where there were formal plans in front of us. It was more of a discussion item. It was like we knew, but we didn't officially know. So there was kind of an ongoing just leaving that property in its state that it was at. But now that we're aware of it, we actually do have direction from the chief building official to get that resolved. We need to give them a plan of action essentially by tomorrow. So we asked them to hold off till after we have a chance for this meeting. Obviously, there are, just like any other owner, we would be subject potentially to reinspection fees without responding to that. We don't take some action on that. So again, just need to provide them a plan of how we plan to intend to address that issue. Probably would want a contract for formal architectural services to design and oversee the corrective actions for someone actually working for the RDA. Up to this point, we've been relying on the developer's contractor in conversations with our chief building official, which we have, don't have any reason to question, but just to be on the safe side and to knowing the costs we might be talking about here, we definitely would want to have somebody take a look at that who's actually representing us specifically. The actual cost for that is not determined. We don't know exactly what that would be. Again, the actual construction costs for the improvements, most likely, and again, very short One being the construction of a party wall between the two, essentially the current building as it lies across a parcel boundary line, which is generally not allowed. So we actually need to have some sort of physical boundary according to code between the two ownership parties as it exists. So it would be more of a fire code related issue. There's also the issue of utilities that would need to be correctly served to the corner space as separate ownership versus what is that right now. There's been kind of essentially the existing utilities from the building. The developer has been covering those at this point. So those are the kind of key items that would need to be addressed if the RDA was to keep those. There's certainly, from an overall commercial viability standpoint, it is a great location for space. It's just not very big. And in terms of the ability to generate revenue, it's probably would be somewhat limited on that site.
Right.
So we've had costs ranging from everywhere, for at least preliminary up to this point, from 800,000 to up to 1.2 million potentially in terms of making all those improvements for that site. Primarily related to the party wall and utilities as being the primary cost items.
Right.
Plans have been submitted to the building owner to proceed without this RDA parcel. So they're actually here today certainly. So if the action is to retain that parcel, they will proceed with those plans, assuming they are formally approved. So they have an option to proceed without these properties or this easement at this point. Did note, I think I did share with you, Mr. Chair, in our previous meeting that this action was actually originally approved by the RDA in March of 2015. For some reason, it was not executed. We can't find any reasoning why it wasn't executed.
Right.
I believe the applicant, as developers looked for that as well. They can't find, it seems to maybe something that just kind of slipped through the cracks. Obviously, that was for a different project at the time.
Right.
But certainly, it was actually previously approved, so.
Sure.
All of our plans in 2015 that we have reviewed and are consistent, all seem to indicate this was the intent back in 2015 was to make this happen.
Right.
And I do believe it's like the last things we noticed, even issuance of a building permit for them to do their work is still contingent on this being resolved on our side because obviously the wall affects both properties. If we do transfer the ownership of that parcel, I think code issues would be addressed by the previously approved plans that they already had submitted earlier, that were already approved. Again, they've submitted the second round of plans in the event that this doesn't move forward. No further action or investment would by the RDA would likely be necessary. The formal mechanism for transferring the property would still need to be drafted and executed this time if approved. We actually would need to make that actually happen. And in terms of this is obviously an assumption that the developer would still accept the parcel at this point, because obviously they have an option to proceed without it.
Sure.
We're assuming, we do think our conversations with them here most recently, they do feel that the best approach would be still to take on this parcel and use that as an access for the second floor. It would make sense, I think, for both of us, but certainly that is something that I believe they would have to take back and still get formally approved at this point.
Good. The simple solution is to transfer it.
In my opinion, Mr. Chair, I think that is, I think a lot of this, certainly, again, I think the concern was whether or not, again, while we're not voting on the actual project that's occurring on the second floor, there's enough, I know this body and staff have had concerns over the project. This is certainly not viewed as an endorsement necessarily of that particular project. But it is something that it is cleaning up a parcel situation and a building code situation that has existed for quite some time.
Yes.
And this would certainly correct that. It would be something that if something else was to happen with the building, we would still need to address this.
Yes.
It would still need to be taken care of at that point. So I think that in that regard, yeah, certainly staff's recommendation on this one is to transfer the property. Would be to simply get that cleaned up.
That's the only action that needs to be taken at this point in time, right?
I think that's the one to allow that. Well, the other one, the easement specifically, would be the other item. Again, plans have been submitted that they don't require the easement anymore.
Okay.
But it does require in a building situation that I don't think anyone is, even the developers, not overly excited about having to pursue. It would certainly be a much nicer project. If those were, we're certainly concerned about wanting to see more windows and more glass. This would actually cause that to go the other way in order to be compliant with code. There's certainly some issues that if they do proceed with kind of changing all that access and so forth on the inside, that obviously that affects the first floor tenants in terms of their access and so forth, and what those impacts would actually be to them, and what actions they may wish to take are certainly unknown at this point. And I think at some point, it's still, even if we don't, the city may still require an easement for our own development sometime in the future. If that area is to be maintained between two separate buildings, we would still need to see something between the two structures. Certainly in terms of the no-build for minimum code requirements, more likely we'd probably want to see some sort of pedestrian access. I think we've discussed a little bit before, to actually give some purpose to that particular area, to make it more of an amenity between the two buildings. So some outdoor seating, emergency access kind of things, pedestrian access between the two structures. So if the easement is granted, I think there would be no more requirement for that particular aspect from the RDA. Again, we might need it in the future. I think in any case, certainly, having these things resolved, I think certainly helps our case in terms of marketing our own parcel, in terms of future development, which I know the mayor has given us direction to say we want to make that a priority this year, in terms of making that go. I think we still do wish to want to meet probably with the developer and talk about their project a little bit and see if there's some things that can be done to try to make that a little better.
Yes.
So I guess, that's, and again, the reasoning, obviously, we're kind of at a point where certainly for our own orders that we're facing in terms of addressing the code issue, but then also for the developer, it's kind of at a point of they're either need to go one direction or another at this point, so.
Exactly.
So that is why it was brought back for this body. Obviously, those were the actions, so certainly would be available for any questions at this point.
So in a nutshell, we'd be executing something that we had actually approved 8 years ago, but was never...
It was never executed.
Maybe they didn't give it the $10 they're supposed to give it. I'm not sure why it wasn't. I really don't. I don't understand. But
Mayor, did you have a question?
yeah, please.
Yeah, just real quick, for you, Director. I mean, what we need to do at a minimum is probably get some architectural analysis.
That's correct.
Right, some independent architectural analysis. I think that would be the thing that we want to do at this stage, and then probably come back to RDA.
Except there's no sense of urgency, isn't there, as far as transferring that property? Otherwise, we're going to have to do some improvements. Right?
I think in terms of having, part of our plan would be to contract the architect to verify what we think is, again, knowing what our inspection staff has reviewed, we're fairly confident, but what the situation's been presented as pretty accurate, but then again, this would actually have an architect review just to verify, an independent verification if that was actually the
And
case.
I guess the question is that action adequate for the building inspector to say, yes, you're pursuing a solution, a potential solution here, so no, we won't be experiencing reinspection?
If not, we would certainly just be the $75 a pop for a reinspection fee, which certainly is not an enormous amount of money, but I think in terms of being able to show them that was our option, and have it say, depending on the determination, we were going to go one way or the other, I think with some hard deadlines, I think would probably be acceptable.
Reinspection fees are issued if people aren't working with us.
Right.
So I would think that in this situation, we're clearly working on a solution here. I don't think reinspection fees would be issued.
Didn't you say there was a sense of urgency by this?
I think just in terms of the developer obviously needing to pull
Right.
a building permit and kind of make a determination from their standpoint which plan they would be pursuing.
Right. So where did I read something about March 15th?
That's for our response to the building inspection, their chief
Okay.
building official.
Okay.
So by tomorrow, yes.
Okay.
And as far as the easement, this would then allow the building to have windows and things that makes it a better project, certainly.
At least to retain the ones that are there. Hopefully there's certainly some other ones that would be added.
Right, and that wouldn't affect a development in the lot, correct? If giving them that easement, that would have no negative impact on...
I don't believe so, and the only thing is if it was going to be a development, obviously, that was taking up both parcels, one development, then that would probably be eliminated, but that can be something that can be dealt with in the future if in fact that would happen. I think most likely we would still need to have the same fire code requirement distance between the buildings that they would on their side. We would still need to have that space between the structures.
Okay.
And in fact, it was adjusted previously. I had incorrectly assumed that it was going to be 30 feet from the property line, and it's actually 30 feet from the actual building wall. So they redrafted the easement to be 30 feet from their building wall. So that actually made, I think, 60% of the area on the Bay Lake City Center property and 40% on the RDA property. So it was considerably less than we originally anticipated on that.
Okay.
Sounds easier.
Pardon?
Sounds easier
Oh.
for an easement.
If you want, you can open up the meeting, but I'm not sure if necessary. I mean, it's up to you.
I mean, like I said, the developer's here if you would like to ask them any questions, certainly.
Mr. Mayor, you have a recommendation?
I mean, I was asking the question about the architectural analysis. I think that is sufficient at this time. If that's enough to, prevent us from suffering any reinspection fees
Yeah, I think
or penalties from our
Staff
building
could certainly
inspector.
prepare it to resolve whatever they need, I think, on that, absolutely.
So the motion would be, what's the motion we're looking at then?
To obtain an architectural analysis of the parcel in the northwest corner of the building.
I would say, and formally respond to
Yeah, I was going to say.
the orders that have been issued, which is implied, but I think we also make sure that action is clear and that we've achieved that.
So we should open the floor if they have any comment?
Would you like us to open the floor? Okay.
Motion open the floor.
Okay. Motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor, saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Yes, please. You got some comments, please make them.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dave DeWick. I'm an attorney in town here at Hager, DeWick & Zengler. I represent the condo association, not the developer. I want everybody to be clear on that. Josh is here on behalf of the developer, but the condo association asked me to attend today just to do a couple different things. One, reaffirm to the RDA, as it relates to the RDA parcel, reaffirm that it, in light of the past approval back in March 2015 of the transfer, in light of the recent non-compliance orders that were issued, and what we understand to be significant costs, I think Neil referenced that today, that could, the RDA could incur, as well as other issues, right? Issues, again, that Neil talked about that relate to the association members, certain condo unit owners and their tenants, depending on if the RDA decides not to transfer the parcel. As Neil alluded, there's going to be significant changes that may be needed to that building, both south side and north side,
Yes.
which, one, affects the aesthetics of the building, and I think everybody doesn't necessarily want that to happen, but two, impacts the work life of the tenants and the employees that are there, significantly could impact them. So in order to facilitate avoiding those issues, the association is still willing to cooperate and obviously the transfer and the completion of the transfer of that parcel. Second of all, as it relates to the easement, the no-build easement or restrictive covenant, similarly, we're still willing to participate in that. Recognize, I hope everybody understands, it's a mutual reciprocal easement, and that it's going to benefit both parties long-term. Without that, if there's any development that goes up there, there's going to be, significant aesthetic issues on the north side of whatever building goes on the RDA parking lot. So, again, we think that that's beneficial from the association's perspective for everybody. So, again, we're willing to participate in that. The documents have been drafted, as maybe you know. It's just a matter of tweaking those slightly with respect to identifying that easement area. But otherwise, the documents related to the RDA parcel have been transferred, and from my perspective, as the association counsel, ready to proceed with execution. As far as urgency, it's not just the developer that sees this as urgent. The association sees it as urgent as well. I can understand Mr. Mayor's opinion to pursue further verification as to the cost but from my perspective, that's kind of kicking it down the road. This issue's been out there for years, and, going back to 2015. And from our perspective as the association, we don't understand necessarily why there's been a delay, but there has been, for whatever reason. And it's just a matter of, in our opinion, the costs and the potential value, however minimal that might be to that, with respect to that parcel going forward. We're just looking for, as immediate a decision as possible, again, because it's going to impact what the association needs to do. Because if the RDA decides to retain the parcel, there's the utility issues, of course, and the rerouting of all that, but then there's also the condominium association, how that impacts that parcel, and the RDA possibly having to become involved somehow in the association. And so it just complicates things from a legal perspective as well.
Yep.
Again, we encourage, obviously, a favorable decision in favor of the transfer and the easement, and we're willing to participate in that. So,
Very good.
thank you.
Excellent. Does the developer want to make a comment? No.
If anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them, I guess, if that's...
I don't have any questions. A motion to go back to regular?
Motion to close the floor.
Motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor, someone saying aye?
Aye.
Back to regular order of business. I'm just gonna make a, I don't always make an opinion here, but I am gonna make an opinion. I think we should transfer it. I think it's gonna be cleaner, and then we should transfer that piece of property. We obviously were gonna do it 8 years ago. Who knows why it wasn't done, I have no idea. But that's my opinion, so I don't normally make motions. I usually help carry them out, but if it's going to take a motion, in this case, I will make that motion that we actually transfer a piece of property.
Gary, how is your motion both that northwest corner of the building as well as the easement? What are your thoughts on the easement?
I'm particularly concerned about the northwest corner of the building. If somebody has an opinion on the easement, we can talk about that as well, but it could either be two separate motions or combine into one. I don't have any problem with the easement either, but I want the group to talk, not just me.
Yeah. No, I honestly, as I sit here and listen and think about it, I agree with you. I am not seeing the overall value in retaining that northwest corner. I can appreciate the comment, certainly from my perspective, in getting, whether that's additional information from an architect, whatever the case may be, but I just don't see the value in keeping it, even if we, get additional information or on the cost. From my perspective, I think it makes sense to transfer that. And as far as the easement, that one's a little trickier for me, but as I think about it, I think that it probably, as you look to develop the other property, that you're still going to want to, maintain that access, and otherwise, again, you run into code issues with being that close on those property lines, et cetera. And so I think that it probably, makes sense in the long run as well to grant the easement.
Very good. So you got two positive opinions here.
Mr. Mayor, were you thinking of adding that to or just substituting? Substituting. Okay, I would like to go into closed session.
You certainly can.
Certainly. The authority may convene a closed session pursuant to sections 19.85, subsection 1, subsection E, Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the site of public properties, investing of public funds, or coordinating or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The authority will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85, subsection 2, Wisconsin statutes, to take action on items discussed in closed session, if appropriate, and to consider the remainder of the agenda.
Okay, there's a motion to go into closed session. Is there a second? A second by Debbie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, I guess, please.
Please would be Delvo,
Yes,
Scannell,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Parma.
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Wants
Yeah.
to stay for any questions or anything?
No,
No, thank
I
you.
don't think so, no. But don't go far. Okay, okay.
Your eyes are on.
That's right, it is. That's right, it is.
Recording stopped.
What's wrong? Motion to go in open session.
And second by Debbie. Roll call, please.
Delvo.
Yes.
Scannell,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Parma.
Here.
They're coming.
Good.
Did you miss us?
Great. We had real good discussion in closed session, and we're ready to make a motion. Melanie?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. First part of the motion based on the prior approval of RDA to transfer that northwest corner of the property. Motion for staff to execute the transfer of that northwest corner of the property. Regarding the easement, motion to refer to staff to have continued conversations to review the plans with the developer based on no easement as well as continued conversations on options with the easement.
Okay, that's the motion. There's a second. Second by Alderman Scannell. Questions or comments in regard to the motion? A second? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Yay.
Yay.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Whew. Thanks for everybody's effort. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, we are on to financial report and check register. I have no questions or comments. I don't know if anybody else did. And director's report. I know you've been busy.
Say, nothing super new. Those are the two projects we're on the agenda today. Has been taking up quite a bit of our time here mostly. So obviously we're still working on existing projects, and we'll be hoping to be bringing some updates for you regarding some other projects here in the next several weeks. So main objective is to kind of keep those projects moving forward at this point with all the financial issues and other things,
I
like
think for the
interest
next
rates and
meeting,
so
you probably have the
forth.
update on
We'll probably have a full
Yeah.
written update for you at
Very
the
good.
April meeting, yes.
Mr. Mayor, anything else on that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good discussion. Thanks for everybody's help. It's been, I appreciate everybody's input. Excellent comments. Our next meeting is April 11th at 1:30. Thank you very
Happy
much.
St. Patrick's Day. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion to adjourn. Second by Debbie. Second by Debbie. Second by Debbie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Melanie. Really appreciate you.
I'd like to be here.
I really appreciate you.
Thanks,
showing up.
Melanie. Thank you.
So where are you?
Well, very good.